senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea. Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
La civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buonasera. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to all of you, and welcome to this 44th edition of the meeting of Rimini, and that is entitled that human existence is an inexhaustible friendship. And the word friendship is a precious opportunity to delve into the deeper meaning of this word. And we are going to do so by exploring a fruit of friendship that is welcoming. And we're going to listen to some incredible stories from relevant testimonies. We have Mr. Massimo Camisasca, Monsignor Emeritus Bishop of Reggio Emilia and Guastalla. Then we have Silvio Cattarina, founder and president of the social cooperative L'Imprevisto. Mr. Luca Sommacal, president of the Families for Hospitality Association. Catia Petta, associate professor of experimental physics of fundamental interactions at Catania University. And Jimmy Tamba, coordinator of the Distance Support Project for Avsi in Freetown, Sierra Leone. Silvio, I start with you. For more than 30 years, your entities support people affected by addictions, and there are these people that think they have no value any longer. So what did you find out, and what you keep finding out? So the smallest, the most in need was me. The poorest, the neediest, the smallest had to be me. It's me. This I understood after the first long years that I had embarked on the experience of welcoming so many boys. I had this great gift of intersecting my life with the life of difficult, defiant, drug-addicted, angry, aggressive, violent boys and girls. And generously, I lavished all sorts of help on them. When, at some point, I felt strongly my need, the need of my heart. Yes, the one who had the most urgency, the most need, the most hunger and thirst for welcome, for love, for justice, for beauty, was me. So I stopped. I stopped a little. I held my breath a little, began to look elsewhere. I started to look up, to ask, to seek. So one day, when one of my boys, for the umpteenth time, said the sentence that from time to time escaped to their minds was, "How much you love us, Silvio." I still remember the place, the time and the day. For the very first time, I answered what my heart was finally looking for. No, you are not the ones I love the most. You are not the ones I love the most. I want, I desire, I ask to be able to love life more, to love God more. I want to be the first, the one who first comes to God. I will be endlessly angry if I find out that instead some of you will come to love God more than me. After a few moments, clearly, I added that if any of them in this race beat me, I would gladly give way. I also remember that a few days later, addressing the boys, I had to add, when you speak of good, when you say that we love you, you think about affection. For you, good and love coincide with affection, with proximity, closeness, with care. But it's not just that. In fact, these conditions are just a small part of good. True love is a task, a responsibility, an adventure, a journey, a challenge, an ideal. My friends and I, the friends with whom we support the communities of the unexpected, of the imprevisto in Pesaro, wish to call you to so much, to something new, something great. In short, in my heart, and little by little in the heart of my colleagues, started to gloom a new day. A new era was beginning to dawn. And you could see it by looking at the boys, by the way they looked at us, by the way they looked at things, by their lighter and quicker pace. We understood slowly, and slowly our eyes began to open, to understand, to feel more, to feel better, to feel something else, another kind of presence. They started to desire something new. In front of me, in front of us, there were no longer only the children, but there was also through them something else, something more, much more. You are not your past. You are not your limitation. Whoever made you believe that you are the evil committed or the evil received, bring me here who led you to these beliefs, because then I will explain to them, no, you can change, you can start fresh, you can start over. We are no longer in paganism. These things were completely unimaginable. So again, even more sharply, I said, hey guys, we're not here for drugs, or for criminal conviction, or for debt, or for self-harm, or gambling, or depression, anorexia, suicide attempts, isolation. No, we are here for more, for so much more. If we are here only for the problems we entered for, it is too little. When you enter a community, after a few moments, I approach this person, I look at them, I embrace them, and immediately, even before, saying anything, I tell them, let us help each other. Let us try to seek something greater. If there is someone or something that is so great that coming to meet us brings us all sorts of good, of gift, of grace, of help, of comfort. Often, I tell them the parable of the exceptional bridegroom who has prepared a great wedding banquet, and nobody manages to accept the invitation. Nobody wants to accept it. Nobody succeeds to accept it. So let's look for someone and something so great to help us be friends forever, forever. These are the words that I use to start talking to the boys freely, quietly. There was a time when I started working in communities 43 years ago. I didn't talk like this. I didn't relate like this. I was born as a sociologist. Over the years, I also became a psychologist. Partly because of that, partly because of the world, of television, of the current mindset. I thought that, well, I was one thing and the boys were something different. What was good for me maybe was not good for the boys. They could not understand so many things. The first long years of my work experience were quite painful and difficult. I felt so much weight on my shoulders. I thought that I had to carry me and only me to carry all that weight, all that pain and suffering, and I couldn't sleep any longer. So who were those boys? Who were they? And who was I? They were the beneficiaries of my good. They were the object of my service. I was delivering a service. I was caring for them. But it was so flat, so miserable. None of us was a protagonist of their lives, of our lives. But then I started living with them 24/7. If you have a pure heart, you discover, you see, you notice, you understand so many things. And then one day I had a sort of a sudden understanding. And every day we have so many meeting moments. And I understood that the most beautiful thing And the most important thing that I can do is being there for them, and in particular is crying. If I can really do something for you, well, I would like to be important to you for my testimony. I want to show you how I cry out to life, to God, to give me everything. And so from day to day, from year to year, I kept saying, life is a cry. Life is not a matter of achievements, of success, of power, of performance. Not as you think, not that way. That's why many people take drugs to increase their performances. Life instead is a cry, is a question, is a prayer, is an invocation, is a supplication. How much shame, how incredible restraint to use such words, so beautiful, so explanatory, so suggestive. I used to say and tell the boys, I want to be worthy, made capable to live up to this cry. If I am like this, if I am what I feel, I am your friend. I feel you are my friends. I want to be with you. I want to be near you, to learn, to help us, to be together this cry, to express, to launch, to raise this cry, to make it reach high, high, higher and higher, and further, further away. I don't want to deal with poor guys, half-hearted guys, but with real great men. On this matter of the cry with the boys, I remember we dwelt for a good time. They were impressed, they were pleased. You could see that they had taken a good, meaningful step. They liked the story of the cry, but something was missing though, something was jamming. The cry became louder and louder, stabbing, bleeding, but what? Everything ended there. Was there only the cry? And well, it was beginning to get difficult when I said, if there is a cry, it means that there are those who are hearing that cry, that are accepting it. There are people who can look at it. There are people who have also been waiting for that cry. There are people embracing that cry. Some already know it. Some know it more deeply than when it bursts in my chest. Yes, boys, our cry has a meaning, has a purpose. There is a harbor, there is a destination. Here it is, dear boys. I've been telling you for quite some time, don't look at me. Look where I look. This is much more interesting, more empowering. So you understand. And I say it loud. What our heart looks for, what our heart has always looked for, exists, is there. It is given. The first and greatest act of love or truth is what leads you to admit that, yes, there is something great, there is a contingency, there is something unexpected. And this is especially true for you, my dear boy, who you did not want to come to the community, who hate everyone and everything, for you who have suffered, who have gone through so many painful things. You can and must cry out more, ask more, hope more, love more. I remember that I often say to the guys, if I were you in your place and I found out that all the pain that I had to live through was for nothing and nobody, I would get really, really angry. I would smash everything. Well, that's why it really is worth smashing everything, no matter how many times you have done it for useless reasons. Here, your life, our friendship, the welcome we offer each other is this, these words, these questions, this pining, this cry, this work, this truth. If life is all this great challenging, fascinating adventure, then we adults we can also be very precise, demanding, even strict towards the boys. I have seen, we have understood that from the boys, from the friend, from the other, it is right to ask a lot, to ask everything. Otherwise, it's as if we don't believe in him, as if we don't value him. And above all, to ask a lot and everything from those who have suffered a lot. From the one who has suffered, it is necessary to ask twice as much. Otherwise, it is as if he has not, and no, I give no value to the suffering he has gone through. To ask for so much and to ask for everything because of the infinite need for love, justice, and beauty with which our hearts are filled. The houses, the garden, the park, the days, the various moments, the spaces, the activities, the eating and drinking, the work and the play, the day and the night. We wish to be the explosion of this beauty, so that more and more deeply we understood that to understand all this, we need to work. You need a lot of work, serious, daily, severe, painstaking commitment. That's the reason for 2 meetings, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, every day, every given day, even on Saturdays and Sundays, even all through the summer, Christmas and Easter. We do that together with the kids. Every day, twice a day, we gather and help each other to understand. We help each other understand, judge, evaluate, assess, criticize everything, gestures, actions, events. We name things well. We try to understand, we try to know, to understand, to understand in order to love. We want to love in order to be able to forgive, to embrace. You can't live without intelligence, without depth, without passion, without emotion, without embrace, without knowing how to laugh and how to cry, how to speak, say, sing, dance, play, without tenderness and sweetness. In conclusion, most of all, always, with desire, we ask that it is the gaze that illuminates, that paints, that distinguishes our every gesture. Let it be the gaze to emerge, to explode, to say, to express our life, our friendship. Yes, we want to show the world the good we came across with. And we need to show what got us together. I would like to be able to look at you the same way God looks at you, with the same gaze. When I say so, I see that just for a second, they are puzzled and almost upset, but at the end of the day, they're happy, they're proud. And when I add, you too, guys, you have to look at me as God will look at me. You can see, you can read in their faces that they are no longer happy. They are bewildered. They pretend not to understand. They start looking here and there, up and down. But instead, they understand so much more than I do. They understand that it is true, that it is right, how beautiful it would be. But they think they're not worthy. They're not capable of such a great, beautiful, true thing. And they think they don't deserve it. And then I conclude with more and more strength and conviction. Guys, friends, what you do in here, what you get here that is either useful to the whole world or really it's useless. It's not even important to you.
L'accoglienza, dice.
So hospitality is something mutual. It's about this question, this cry leading to the wish to be able to look at everybody with the same gaze as God. So, Luca, you have been working with so many families that welcome other families. So, how is hospitality the core of friendship? Well, your experience is the experience of a friendship. So Don Giussani said to a group of leaders of families for hospitality in 1991, we are normal families, and for different reasons in life, they open the doors of their homes to people in need. And in this, we discover a richness for our lives. Families who come together to accompany each other to face the inevitable challenges that every experience of hospitality brings. So it's about companionship, it's about friendship, families walking together, sharing labors, hopes, and discoveries, friendly families. And the term friendship is to be understood in its deepest and most mature sense. Relationships that support and sustain and relaunch each other in facing their lives, and that fascinating dynamic that is the sense of destiny. Without, any sort of mitigation, with immense freedom and mutual esteem. Some time ago, a friend during a meeting said, referring to his own hospitality experience, this journey was possible only within a certain company in which judgment and good passed. This is a company that was not surprised about my limitations. On the contrary, the friendship became deeper and deeper. And there was no censorship about difficulties. Instead, the difficulties could become the starting point from which to build. Or a friend telling about a recent dialogue between her and her now adult adopted son said, "What was it for you, the experience with me?" "Well, you drove us crazy." And he said, "I know I drove you crazy." But then she added, "Well, going back, I would do exactly the same thing again." And then, commenting upon this dialogue, she said, "Well, what made you hold on during the rough patches?" "Well, God's loyalty and faithfulness for a clear companionship, faces that gave us back something that let us rediscover our origins." This has to do with some sort of family vocation and accompanying steps. And so perhaps it's because of this that there are people who feel being living the same experiences. There are many, many families that we have come across the years who have become real friends. During an appointment for a prep course for adoption, one of the participants thanked us because he thought he had resolved the wound of not being able to have a child. But then after this training, this person told us, "You somehow sort of unveiled a question that I thought had disappeared. Instead, it is pressure to be able to start talking about this again with my wife, even if I don't know where this will take us." So friendship is also about collaborating with other entities, institutions, and public bodies. So all this is the result of a friendship. This work is made also of people, of families, but which kind of experience does each household live through? There is an original dimension expressed by the formula celebrated by the bride and groom in the marriage rite. "I welcome you." It's a total welcome. The other, so espouses, embraces, loved in their totality, beyond and through their limitations, in endless wonder and enchantment at their presence, because it is there until the experience of forgiveness. And this dynamic is generative. It opens, it meets, it welcomes. It includes, so do the children, but also those you come across with over your path. So the family is the very first place where you can experience being welcomed. And then, by osmosis, you end up being able to embrace the other. You welcome because you are welcomed. But it is more than being welcomed by the other person. The other welcoming me lets me experience my own life, my being in life, And through hospitality, I can somehow transmit this embrace. It is my own, but it's not my own. It's more than that. And so I discover a strange kind of reciprocation. So I can discover somebody loving me in the other. And this is reciprocity. It is proper to love. It's given to something that every family should experience. And this dynamic was triggered especially over the last few years through the pandemics and more recently with the war crisis in Ukraine. When the war broke out, we made ourselves available to help welcome refugees who would arrive in Italy. As an association, we organized ourselves, and many families made themselves available to host refugees, but also to support the operation of machinery, working together with other entities, including Avsi. So we supported those who hosted, and that's how we found ourselves involved in a widespread and dense network of solidarity made of individuals and families throughout Europe who have and are still doing their best to help the Ukrainian people. And this is a sort of surreal fruit of good that the war generated. In Italy, we had more than 800 families being available to welcome refugees. So we have had so many families being available to welcome these people for a short or long period. This contributes to peace in the world, to building history. This great availability, this great wave of good that we are tapping into is the confirmation of what the Pope said in his recent book, namely that we need to step out of ourselves because we need each other. This is the reciprocity we mentioned earlier that is essential to the development of every human relationship. All the more necessary, the more we approach those who are suffering and in need. An original openness to the other that has in the family the first place of experience. The other is never locked up in what he or she has been able to say or do, but as the Pope said, the other is considered as a promise that they carry. So at the end of the day, this is what leads every gesture of hospitality that we do. Thank you. Well, every hospitality gesture, short or long, has the world as a horizon, and this contributes to peace in the world. So these are very concrete words, Catia. And which is your experience in your daily life? To what extent every hospitality gesture has to do with peace in the world? Well, when I was a child, my mom taught at a differential boys' school placed inside an institution for children with complicated family situations. Some of these families used to come to us to spend weekends with us or summer vacation. I remember Giorgio, a terrible kid. When he got angry, he was able even to lift a desk and hurl it at a classmate. I remember Christmas vacation was approaching and Giorgio was becoming more and more agitated. And my mother asked him, Giorgio, are you going home for Christmas? And he said, no. No, my mom doesn't even know where I am. She never came here. So write her a letter and invite her to come and take you home. I will help you. But she doesn't know how to read. She can't read. Teacher, no matter. When your letter arrives, she will certainly find somebody reading it to her. That Christmas, George went back home, and when he came back, he had become somebody different. He was different. So my mom, little gesture, had taught me the first practical basics of hospitality. She had understood George's desire through the contradictory signs of his agitation, of his discomfort. She became his friend, his ally, and then he had let the child go. She didn't hold him for herself. And then I grew up, I meet Ugo, whom I later marry. I attend university in my spare time. With many friends and a few colleagues, I go to a working-class neighborhood in Catania called Picanello, where the Little Sisters of the Assumption live and operate. And around them, there is a whole network of people, and I meet them, and they support the families of the neighborhood. They rescue children from the streets, and then they set up after-school activities by rearranging the premises of the convent cloister. And we help them take care of the newborns in silent naturalness. Care and tenderness are taught where they're lacking. So they keep up the kitchen, the laundry, the house, up to the point that 3 families from this group volunteered to take in 2 children and a girl from a critically ill household into their home. Their experience was not easy, but it was absolutely unconditional, sharing everything with the friends and with the little sisters. It was a journey for all of us. Then I get married. Francis is born, and now he's 30 years old, and the second pregnancy does not come. I then meet families for hospitality, and Juicy, a Sicilian 11-year-old girl, will come and stay with us until she's 21. And this is foster care. With her, as with every child, we're accompanied to understand our deepest wishes and desires, sometimes hidden through complicated behaviors and choices. And we were helped to ally ourselves with them, to widen our hearts, pointing to hers as she took us to places and situations we would not even imagined. So we understood that we need to use our limitations to understand that the other person is a good asset for us. And there are some Father Giussani's words that have become like a tattoo in our hearts. So true are they. So hospitality is forgiving the diversity of the other, is welcoming. Welcoming is like forgiving. Juicy went back to her village. She got married. She has a little daughter. We loved her, but then we let her go. When the Ukraine war blew out, I was so deeply moved by the news coming from there. And like anybody else, I was touched. And immediately, a very shy young university student wrote to me, "What can we do here?" On a local foster family chat was activated. Some people volunteer to host refugees, and so we decided to use word of mouth to set up some hosting service. So we make up a list of hundreds of families open to welcome refugees in Sicily. Then, so young moms come with their children. We share their wishes. We support them. We try to help them financially. And in those days, we have a couple celebrating many, many years of marriage, and they decide to collect money for refugees, and then people try to find them a job, to find them places in Italian language courses, and to help them, but also to create, fun moments with them, leisure moments. we touch their pain. Some of them come from Kharkiv. Their husbands are on the front. Others are at war and always away. So we try to embrace them, to open up our arms and welcome them. In January, we get Daria. Daria arrives. She's such a big gift. I had met her some time earlier in a call from Help Ukraine Point, Rosaghi and Donatella. She had already been in Italy after the beginning of the war. For 6 months, she had taken a child affected by autism and disability who had come to Italy for some surgery. And then in November, she went back to Kiev, but now she wanted to come back to Italy. And when I ask her her skills, I do not expect any answer. And she has a degree in chemistry, and I'm a chemistry professor. So we encourage her to resume her university studies, and she does. She's so happy. When at one point, one evening at dinner, I tell my husband that now we need to find her a family hosting her, he knew every step in this story, told me, why don't we host her? So what's the trigger of this openness? It's a friendship. It's a friendship that is at the roots of ourselves, even before we meet somebody else. With Daria, we clicked immediately. We felt so mutually grateful. We shared a mutual wish to share, to get to know each other, to get to understand each other, to understand our weaknesses, our pain. She came with her heavy personal story and the war, and on the other side, there was us with daily problems related to the care of my elderly parents. Now she told me that she feels being part of the family and not as a host. What does it mean to share all this as a family of adults? Well, this is an open question. So hospitality between and among adults is a miracle. The miracle made possible by our freedom. We're not perfect. We're friends. We make mistakes, but we keep looking out for each other, starting fresh from our mutual forgiveness. We understood that only through the church. And we see it in action in so many stories. So limitations, evil are not scandalous. It's not the ending word of relations. In our daily relationship to Daria, we daily see this constant motion of a heart opening again and again, and this has to do with the story of the world, the universal possibility of peace, of concord, of real friendship among the peoples that can be experienced only through forgiveness taking the shape of hospitality. Thank you.
Si accoglie perché si è accolti. Jimmy.
One is welcomed because they welcome. Jimmy, today you work as coordinator of the project Distance Hospitality in Sierra Leone, and you are first adoption father of 2 young girls. What has made it possible for you, former soldier kid, to be so hospitality, to have this hospitality?
I am from a family of 6 with 3 sisters and 2 brothers. and I happen to be the third. A former child there that was captured at an early age, trained to be an army, to fight a war, for what reason or why, I don't know. And an individual who has experienced a lot of psychological, emotional, and physical trauma. An individual who also lost his father at a tender age has become a role model to others in life and society today. It has not been an easy journey, yet I was able to overcome. Most of my colleagues who had a similar experience as I was could not make it. Some ended up to be drug addicts, others mad, some night carpenters, thieves and robbers, even beggars. Some died out of strange illness. It was never their wish. But they did not have the person they can look up to. An individual that can understand their needs, or open arms to guide them accordingly, and give them the necessary support that they needed to change or improve their lives. For the deceased, may their souls rest in peace. A one-time child soldier is now a university graduate with a BSc honors in governance and leadership, with a first-class degree, and soon will graduate with a master's in development management and a postgraduate diploma in education at the same time. A transformation that I never dreamt of, yet it is happening. It has been a long journey and with numerous challenges, of which I will not lament on here, or else will not live here today. I would like to thank the Family Homes Movement and Reverend Father Beton of Blessed Memories, who was always there for me and guided me through my path. Looking at my past experience as a child soldier, who has witnessed so many odd scenarios in life that affected my personal life, scenarios that can lead to trauma and other memory challenges. He never gave up on me. Rather, he taught me the value of life, how one can be a better person in life, despite the type of trauma the individual might have faced. And I am not an exception. I was a difficult person to interact with, though still I have that character as I speak. Nevertheless, Reverend Father Beton spends a lot of time with me talking and narrating stories about people who have gone through similar, though not the same story, but ended up being a great people in life. He always traveled with me to different places just to get my mind relaxed and to open opportunities that are in front of me. May his soul rest in peace. I am more than grateful to an Italian family that accepted me as one of their own. Even though race, color, and neither region did not connect us, yet they saw me as one of their own. Allowed me to stay in their home for a whole year, to live the life with them, to feel the life of a family. They supported me in different ways, especially in my lonely moments, when I feel like not talking to anyone. They never gave up, especially my mother and kid brother. I owe them a lot, and I hope they are listening to my testimony. They said to me that they owe me nothing, as it is their responsibility as family to look over every family member. I want to say thank you, and I'm proud to be your son and your brother. I am talking about the Nembrini family of Bergamo. Grazie mille, Maria Grazia, Franco, e Gabriele. The little time I spent with you, taught me a lot about life. And I always have the emotion of your kindness. You showed me that everyone has a value. It all depends on the type of people you interact with, and those that has passion, empathy, and love for others. I'm sincerely grateful. I wish my mother, Maria Grazia Nembrini, and a special sister, Elga Contardi, we are sitting here by my side as I'm sharing my long life experience with you. Back home after my stay in Italy several years ago, I think over 15 years, I returned a different person, and everything I learned from this family guided me through. I realized that every human being needs the attention of others, listen to them, and value their being to help them in their personal development and transformation. Father Beton, on the other hand, always in his words, say this to me: always try to help others. Bring them closer whenever you have the chance. This will increase on your happiness. Today, aside my biological son, I have two beautiful daughters, Mariama and Saleh. Mariama, who is almost about 20 years now, and Saleh is almost 11. And they are formal and current pupils of the Holy Family Schools, a very big school built by Avsi through Family Homes movement in Sierra Leone. I decided to take up their responsibilities and support both as my children when I was working as a social worker in their school and after hearing their stories. Both of them have different life stories. I met Mariama when she was 11 years after the Ebola scourge in our country. I saw it in her face that she was depressed, shy, and never spoke nor interact with others. After several observations, then I realized that she needed attention, and she was in middle school 1. I had to come closer to her to know what was wrong with her, why she's always sad and lonely and hardly talk to anyone. So I had to think about my previous life. After several discussions, she had to explain her situation to me, which she has been going through. It was tough for me to bear when she narrated her story. An orphan who lost both parents in one day through the Ebola virus and has no one to take care of her education, not to talk of food. A neighbor who rescued her almost always maltreated her. I had to remove her from that family to a neutral family where I was given my support for her livelihood. Saleh, on the other hand, had a different but similar story. She had no friends, nor do not interact with her age mates in class. She was just 3 years old at that moment. I came to realize this when I visited the preschool to play with children. She never for once came close. I had to talk with her teacher to know the cause of her loneliness and why she always sits alone. The teacher had to narrate the story. She told me that her mother ran away, leaving the child when she was 1 year old with her grandmother. And no one knows her actual destination. The grandmother happens to be a backyard gardener and not too healthy to embark on a walk. Therefore, the child always comes to school without food. I had to spend some time with her alone. And I told the teacher from that day onwards, she is my responsibility. Today, Saleh is in the final year of the primary education, while Mariam has completed her senior secondary education, waiting results. The most important activity I can recall I had with them was celebrating their birthdays, something they have never experienced, nor celebrated in their lives. This was their first experience to know what a birthday celebration means. After a long dinner as a way of celebrating them, they returned home to their caregivers. Going to work the next morning, I met the caregivers waiting for me to express their gratitude, especially the grandmother of Saleh. She told me that they could barely sleep as she continued explaining her experience for the first time. That was her 7th-year birthday. Knowing what it was to have a birthday celebration. Today, I feel pleased with myself, seeing my children grown to such a peak in life. I owe this to the Nemrini family and to my host, a sister and a former colleague of Avsi, Elga Contardi. Elga was and is my strong pillar in supporting the growth of these beautiful kids. My life has been like moving from being a beneficiary to a benefactor. Something I myself cannot imagine, or an individual who can support the growth of another to become a useful person in society. What a world. Not that I have the financial power to support them, but I felt obliged to, because it is something I have learned from different individuals in life with different experiences I have encountered. I have this belief in life and connected with my life experience. If we say we should have enough before we help others, then it will never work. For nothing is enough for us on planet Earth, because even the rich demand for the more. In fact, they demand for more than the average or poor people in the midst. The above-mentioned people had never enough, yet they supported me, and so I feel proud in doing the same. Now working as a project coordinator of Avsi in the distance support project, I'm working with a larger number of beneficiaries compared to before and different communities. My main target is transforming the lives of inhabitants who lack the basic social amenities. Working with a small village like Martina Tabai in the northern part of Sierra Leone, as an example, one of our operational areas became my personal challenge. A community that is deprived of social amenities, despite situated on the main route between the capital city and the third city. Through the support of Avsi and my dedication to transform the mentality and lives of the people, I see a lot of progress taking place, and I need to do more. Today, I'm happy I've been helping others to realize their potentials and to guide them through their life journey. Mariama and Saleh has taught me that people can do better and contribute to societal progress if they are listened to and have the right guidance and support. If we all open our arms to others, listen to their inner problems, come close to them, so that they feel the value, loved, and comfortable, we live in a world of peace and harmony. A world that will not entertain chaos, war, suppression, and depression, disparities, etc. Devoid of our race, color, and even religious diversities. I will conclude by saying, we all have the opportunity of hosting, supporting, and helping others to realize and achieve their full potential. Let us learn to open our doors and our arms to those who are in need for attention, care, support, and love. If we all do this, the world will be a better place for us all, and we'll never know the difference between rich and poor, black or white. As it is written in the Bible, that whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do to me, says our Lord Jesus Christ. May God bless us all. Thank you very much.
Dunque, da un'amicizia.
So from a friendship responding to a specific need, and this family environment, this wave is becoming bigger and bigger as an opportunity to the world, getting to Ukraine and West Africa, where a kid who could escape from the militia and welcomed by an Italian family then goes back to his country to continue a wonderful work. Catia, before you asked what determines this openness, if not a friendship that is there before, that is at the origin of us. Monsignor Camisasca, to conclude, I would like to ask you to get closer to this original friendship and see how it expands over history, looking at antiquity up to the history stories that we have listened to this evening. Good evening. I think that we could all perceive the intensity of these moving words that came from all these witnesses, and we could perceive the flow of the history of the world. We're not talking about something marginal to the history of people. We're not talking about feelings that are at a side or about particular events. Even if the world may not be aware, we are talking about the engine of the history of the world, because the engine of the history of the world is friendship and hospitality. Of course, this is the engine of the history that looks forward, that can build, because there is also a history that destroys. We all know about it, and we have heard about it this evening. We have been moved by all the things that have been mentioned in this session. There is a history that destroys, but there is a history that builds. And we want to be part, with humility, but decidedly, of this history that builds. So thinking about this evening's session, I've been thinking about it for months. I went to look at the history of many different peoples, and I found something that was sort of intuitive to me, and maybe I already knew about that, and it was confirmed by many works I read, and it is that peoples in antiquity all knew the reality of hospitality to a greater or lesser extent. This was a significant reality of their existence. Welcoming meant that those coming from a journey from far away, long journeys are not just part of our present, but they were also in the past. People would move from one place to another, individuals would walk towards unknown destinations. So those who came from a distant place, those who were looking for food or for something to drink, or those in danger were looking for a shelter. These are all stories of people, of tribes, of entire peoples. So a sign of humanity was indeed the hospitality for these people. And it was also an interested gesture, because those welcoming these people really hoped that in case of need would have been welcomed themselves. They wished they would have received the same treatment. And by welcoming, there was a hope for something more, to welcome the gods themselves through the poor, or through the beggar, or through the pilgrim that was passing by and was asking to be welcomed in one way or another. So people would welcome them, and they would welcome something mysterious, and something highly mysterious would be added to people's life. In this way, a virtuous exchange would take place. The host does not just give food, water, a bed, but would also receive. They would receive the hope of being welcomed themselves in turn, and they hope that their gesture was not useless for their future life. Think about the Italian word ospite. The dictionaries of 300 years ago used to say that ospite is the one that hosts, but today it's also used for the one being hosted. So there's been an exchange. The one who is hosted is brought to the same level of the other and is called by their name. I also have another citation about this word, which derives from the Slavic root osp. And those who know about Byzantine liturgy should know about it. So the Lord is the one that is hosting and the one that is hosted. So one becomes the Lord in giving hospitality. I also went back to classical Greek in thinking about this. In classical Greek, foreigner, to say foreigner, you say xenos, and hospitality is xenia. So two words that would seem to be opposite, they are in fact the same word. So what happened? This is what happened. The stranger, the one that is strange, that is different, the one who feels others as strangers, through hospitality becomes integrated. They become welcomed. Of course, the local laws must be accepted, the local language should be mastered a little bit, and the local habits should be respected, but they can become friends. In some Greek authors, the word xenos, that originally means foreigner, eventually means philos, that is friend. I would like to talk about some of the poems that are founding words in the Western history, that is the Odyssey. The poem about Ulysses' return to Troy to his Ithaca, to his home. This is a poem to hospitality. At the origin of Western culture, there is the theme of hospitality. When Telemachus, the son of Ulysses, arrives at Nestor's palace in search of his father, a son seeking his father, he is welcomed and he is not questioned about his name or where he comes from. He is given hospitality because he is a foreigner bringing with him something mysterious, looking for his father. And again, Ulysses, when he gets to the island of the Phaeacians, unrecognizable, ragged and dirty, he is welcomed by the king's daughter, Nausicaa. All the handmaids fly away when they see him, as he is all dirty and half-naked, but the king's daughter reprimands them, as she reminds them that there is an obligation to take care of those who come begging because they come from God. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Polyphemus, the monstrous one-eyed Cyclops, does not welcome Ulysses' hospitable gifts, but even feeds on the flesh of his guests. Then another poem that is a founding work of our Western story is the Aeneid, a Latin poem in this case, the first book. The Trojan castaways meet in Carthage with Queen Dido, and they ask to be welcomed in the city she is building, and she replies, "If you want to stay in my kingdom, be known that this new city is yours. There will be no difference between you Trojans and us who come from Lebanon." So two founding poems of our entire culture are imbued with the theme of hospitality for the future. Future is the meeting among peoples. It is the engine of the future. And now I would like to quote the Old Testament. In the book of Genesis, the stories of Abraham. Patriarch Abraham was the one with whom God had, in a definitive way, inaugurated the convocation of all people into one people through faith and covenant. He receives a visit from three people. It is midday, it is very hot, something like today in a way. And what does he have to do with these three newcomers to his tent? Does he have to welcome them? Does he have to give them food and something to drink? Well, he asks them to stop by. He hopes he is welcoming gods, and in fact they are. He hopes to obtain great advantage for his life, and in fact he does, because they promise him a son, even if he and his spouse are really old. So he gets some water, he gets some bread ready, some bread fresh and sour milk and veal, and gradually he realizes that the guest is the Lord who will eventually promise him the long-awaited heir. The New Testament, God is the one who comes from afar, from heaven. Farther than that, Jesus tells us the story of the Good Samaritan, one that comes from Jerusalem to Jericho. And Jericho is a little bit kind of hell. It's even hotter than here. Well, Jesus is the one coming from afar, and he asks to be welcomed. But at the beginning of the Gospel of John, what do we find? He came among his ones, but he wasn't welcomed. darkness didn't welcome, the world didn't recognize him. That's the drama of Jesus. He comes for his, he comes among his, and it is a kind of contradiction for the world. But some will welcome him, and to those who welcome him, he gave the power to become children of God. Others will reject him. In the last book of the Bible, the Apocalypse, Jesus says of himself, "I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door for me, I shall come to him." And finally, the hospitality, and dine with him, and he with me. All the revelation is a great and present invitation to welcome Jesus into our homes. It also shows the mystery of unwelcoming, of rejection, of the cross. Jesus is crucified outside the walls of Jerusalem, outside the house that was built for God. But he insists to get into our life so that we can open our door. So, to sum up, we can say that if we welcome Jesus, in fact, he welcomes us into the banquet of communion with him. He welcomes us in the life of the Trinity. The origin of the world is not loneliness, is not coldness. The origin of the world is fire, and such a fire is the hospitality of the Father towards the Son and of the Son towards the Father that generates the person of the Spirit. During his public mission on the earth, Jesus was welcomed, was hosted either by his own request or by the initiative of others. He was welcomed, but he and is above all the ones that have been hosted. He is the sign of the presence of God for us. Jesus is the sign for us that we are hosted and welcomed. Chapter 25 in Matthew, Jesus appears again under the face of the stranger and says, "I was a stranger and you welcomed me." When we welcome a brother, we welcome him. So we all have a mission to reveal to the world the face of Christ, who appears to us in the face of our brothers and sisters. This is what I prepared, but I would like to add something. That is some brief remarks on what we have heard this evening. 4 brief remarks on some points that impressed me, as so many things have been mentioned this evening and so many experiences have been told us and many reflections. So I took notes of some of them, and I would like to give you a gift in sharing my reflection. I would like to start with Luca Sommacal's presentation, because something really impressed me about what he said, that friendship comes before hospitality. And why is it so? Why is it so that friendship is the precondition for hospitality? Well, friendship, it is clear, in its highest level, is the friendship among human beings, man with a woman with a woman, a man with a man. But friendship is something deeper. Friendship is welcoming life, welcoming things, welcoming what happens to us. It is a way of being, more than just a relationship with others. Friendship is a positive hypothesis to life. For this, friendship is a condition for welcoming, because if there is not a positive hypothesis, we will just close ourselves. We cannot love if we do not know that we can be loved, or rather, if we do not experience at least a little bit that we are loved. The most terrible thing in life is that one gets to say, nobody loves me. When someone says, I love you, we are opening a space, because otherwise the other person will close in himself or herself, and they think that everything is lost. But through some signs, we can open the person. If a soldier kid, ex-former soldier kid, can tell us what he has told us today, and if Cattarina could tell us what he has told us today, it means that with patience, with time, it is possible to accompany people in the experience of being loved. And so in the experience of being able to welcome, because they have been welcomed themselves. This is what really called my attention from Mr. Sommacal's presentation. Then there's another point from Catia's presentation, and the stories that she told us about the girls that were hosted. You see, when one welcomes a person who has experienced abandonment, one cannot really prepare anything in advance, because being abandoned creates a kind of big hole inside the person. And how can this hole be filled? Welcoming a person who has been abandoned means that any forecast, any project, any expectation of reciprocity cannot be there. There's just gratuity. And she said, friendship opens in us the space of gratuity. It allows us to welcome, to forgive, to let it go. I think it's something that is really, really important. And the beautiful presentation by Silvio, who mentioned so many things, and in particular, I noted down this, that is, friendship is a springboard for creativity in the adventure of life. I think this is important. That is, our communities are places where people can be reborn, so that the story of people can be reborn. People just not come to life again for themselves. Nobody dies just for themselves. These are the words by St. Paul. And the experience of the unexpected is what we have heard, the resurrection of Christ that comes in to create a new world. And finally, in the presentations we have listened to, we had Jimmy's presentation, and I was impressed by many things, especially the names, Father Burton, the Nembrini family, because welcoming hospitality always has names and last names. It's not something abstract. Hospitality is involvement of people, of stories, of conditions, and so it's always there, ready to crumble, ready to start again, ready to regain new energy, because it is always affected by our precariousness, by our fragility, by our humanity that is so poor sometimes, but still so fascinating. Thank you very much.
Ringrazio Monsignor Camisasca.
I would like to thank Monsignor Camisasca for his words and also the other friends with their presentations. And you, Excellency, reminded us that he is not just welcomed, he is much more. He's the sign of the hospitality of God towards us. And the meeting itself is based on a friendship, and each of us, by donating at the donation stations Dona Ora in the trade show center, can contribute to this initiative. I would like to thank once again and help me thank and welcome again the guests of this evening session, and thanks to you all for coming. Thank you.
Grazie.
Eccoci.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea. Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli. Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea. Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire. Non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Però tanta gente mi lamenta, guarda questo. Oh, io allora ci